David Hart is a transformation leader at Ericsson, who's a leader in developing 5G equipment. He led the development team to build a product called EPHAS, also known as Every Place Has a Story. This location based storytelling platform has the potential to completely change travel, connecting places and learning in ways never before seen. Here to share more about his product and the future it can help create is David Hart. Take it away.
Thanks for the introduction, and welcome everybody to the Metaverse Creators Summit. As mentioned, I'm David Hart, and I'll be talking to you today about Every Place Has a Story, or EPHAS, as we call it as our acronym. So what we'll do is we'll take a kind of a quick talk about our origin story and how we came to be, the ideas behind it, where we think it can be used, and we'll also talk a little bit about the platform itself and give you a peek behind the tent there a bit. And then we'll finish up by talking about or showing you one of the stories that one of our customers in Europe is using to build impactful experiences for their customers in their museum space. So with that, let's get started. So if you go back roughly 3 years, our founder, Henrik, had come home from work, and his wife was super excited about some information that she had found out about her family home, which you can see here in the upper left. And yet at the same time was trying to figure out, how does she make this content available for people? So, she could, of course, think about putting it on her Facebook wall, but, over time, it's going to get lower down the list and eventually disappear. YouTube's a great option if you've got a video channel and you want to do that. But again, it's sort of remote, and that, you don't really connect the two places. And that was really what she wanted to do, was be able to have, relatives, her family, people in the neighborhood, when they went by this home, kind of learn the pieces of history about it that she had found. And we're just struggling, frankly, to find a way to do that. Meantime, Henrik is a big history buff. Likes to actually go to places like here in the lower right, which is the beach in Normandy, pull out a book, sit in a chair, and kind of look over the scene and start looking at maps and figuring out, just, where things are going and how did things look, back during the time when that action was going on. And thought, AR would be such a great way to do something like this, and to be able to sit on this bluff and experience, this information as if it was happening live for you that time. Would just be an awesome experience. And so he started thinking about this with respect to the house and the stories as well. So, the next day or two, he came to work and started talking to some of us and saying, hey, how are you aware of anything we can do this with? Is there a platform? Did I just miss it? And, at the end of the day, after several pieces, time spent together, we came to the conclusion that a location-based AR storytelling platform really does not exist. And so, this was all happening about the same time that Ericsson was promoting Ericsson One, which is an internal incubation project at the company, where we're trying to bring employees' ideas to the forefront, screen them, and then give some funding to some of them to see if we can make something fly. And so, over the next several weeks, Henrik pulled together some information, kind of fine-tuned his thoughts a bit, and presented to Ericsson One, who ultimately did give him some seed funding to go look and kind of explore a bit to see how it might work. So from that point on, we were really on a journey to build a revolutionary end-to-end platform to democratize AR storytelling and to use cutting-edge technology in the process. And so that journey, we really had three primary goals that we were focused on. And the first one was to make it easy for developers to tell a story. And then we really wanted to go another step further and say, not just developers, but really anyone. Henrik's wife, for instance, is not a developer, but she has a story she wants to tell. And how could we make it possible for, someone with very little experience to do that? And so that really is our driving goal. Secondly, we wanted to create a common app or space where people could go and look at those stories, so that you don't have to have 14 different apps on your phone or your tablet. Everywhere you go has a different way of viewing something. We wanted to create something that was more ubiquitous and could be used across multiple organizations, multiple sites, again, for very high-end developed stories and for locally produced stories. And then finally, with that, we really hope to unlock the potential of augmented reality storytelling, so that you can tell the stories you want to tell, where you want to tell them. So if we look at the high-level components of the platform, they're really primarily two main components in this system. The first one is the creation software or storytelling studio. And this is really, where the magic happens, if you will. This is where you bring your assets in, or you put them in the space and the relationships you want to the marker that you're going to use to start the story. And then the second piece is the visualization software, or the EPHAS app. And this is, again, that ubiquitous platform that we feel is so important for building something that can be spread across multiple communities and sites. And so the important piece of this to us is that the 3D assets that you build in the story aren't actually part of the app itself, as they are in so many cases. And that allows us to use this app for multiple stories across multiple organizations and individuals, for that matter. So let's take a second and look at what the Storyteller Studio is. So I'm going to start in describing this in the natural way you would use it. So we'll start in the upper left. So when you look at the upper left here, you see the import panel. And I've kept it simple by only putting 3 assets in. 2 of them are images, and 1 is an audio track. But it's very simple to do. You click the button, a little plus sign down there on the kind of middle left of the screen. You go select the assets you want, you import it, and then the system converts it to the appropriate file type for use in the platform. And then what you do is you look at the bottom half of the screen. That's our timeline. And so here what I do is I take a particular asset. So for instance, the JPEG there over on the left up top is the one that you can see the big rectangle on, the blue rectangle. So when I drop that into that line or that track, I'm able then to size it. And so I do it in a couple different ways. I size the timing, if you will, by physically clicking on that rectangle, and I move it left or right to change the starting time. And then if I want to make the image available, or the asset available for viewing at a longer period of time, I'll grab the right side of that rectangle and I'll drag it out to the right. So maybe out to 40 seconds. If I think it's too long, I'll pull it back to the left, maybe stop it at, say, 15 seconds or so, or 20 seconds. And then the same thing with other assets. So I can add multiple assets on a single track, or I can add multiple image tracks to add them in separate spaces if it makes it a little bit cleaner for me as a developer to create the story that I wanted to create. And then you can, of course, add 3D models, particle effects, video, and other things, as you can see there on the left. And they work very much the same way. So once I've done that, and I've dropped an image, for instance, in the track, it'll show up in the top center space, which is our 3D viewing space. And it'll show up right on top of that image marker in the center of that green field. And so then what we'll do is we'll take that image and we'll move it where we want it to be, right? So in this case, I moved the asset to the upper right, and you can see the gizmo I used to do that is highlighted because it's active. So I can use that gizmo to move it left or right. I can pull it in front of that green wall, or I can push it behind the green wall. I can move it up and down, of course, as well, and then also change the angles and the way that it's viewable from with respect to where that marker is. Now, the green wall itself is just there to help you understand where the plane of the marker is versus the real world and versus this view of it. But it's not a limit in any way. You can go outside it, left or right, and you can also, of course, go front and back, as I mentioned. And then as we switch over to audio, this particular program or application, we have put spatial audio in. And so we're actually able to move that audio track around. So right now it's coming from basically the floor in the center of below the marker. But it's easy enough for me to drag it just as I would one of the other assets and put it to the upper left, upper right. I can even go and add a second set of audio and have it sound like different pieces of audio are coming from different places around the story relative to that marker again. So that's kind of how the 3D space works. And then finally, if you look to the right, you'll see it's more of an admin space. We've got kind of a placeholder EPHAS logo there. And then there's ways I can size the logo, and of course in that space, and then save the project and ultimately publish it. So quite simple to do in that respect. And then if we move on, so where can you use EPHAS? Well, really, we think you can use it any place you want to tell a story. So that's the great answer. But let me give you a couple examples. So in a city or cultural space or an arts district, maybe there's a place where there's some murals in your city. You could even make the mural be one of your markers, for instance, and then you could hang, not just one or two, but 4, 5, or 6 stories off of that particular mural. Maybe it's first a little bit of history about the artist, and then what their inspiration for that piece was, etc. Museums and parks, open spaces. These places often are limited in space they can show, how much of their archive they can bring out, and I'll show you a story about that here in a minute. Schools and businesses. Schools and businesses are really education and training. So whether it's a dinosaur in a classroom of grade schoolers, or maybe a safety training that makes something impactful and visual for somebody to see it before they have to start a piece of equipment. And then finally, we've been using the product internally in Ericsson as well for product marketing, showing prototypes to customers and things. So really, at the end of the day, the uses are limited really only by your imagination. So what I'm going to do here now is show you about a minute-long video. You'll see the EPHAS marker there in the front. This is a screen recording, and there's really no editing done other than the original piece starts with an over-the-shoulder view, just so you can kind of see how it works. And then after that, you're seeing and experiencing what they would in the museum itself.
Where are they taking us? Where are we going? Can somebody tell us where we're going? Quiet! Get moving!
Soviet troops fleeing from Estonia crammed 484 prisoners, many of them political, onto Yonte Air. The plan is to take them to Leningrad. There is barely room to stand. The prisoners have been on board for 3 days with minimal food and water.
Somebody has fainted! Could we please get some water?
The engine has broken down and the ship remains at anchor near the port. First the crew and then the guards abandon the ship. The prisoners are left to their fate. Fortunately, some of them are able to adjust and hoist the sails, and the ship is ready to move. They get close to Kadriorg before running aground.
Let's raise the Estonian flag! We need to signal the Germans on the shore that we're not Soviets!
Some of the stronger prisoners manage to swim to the shore and bring help. All arrest-related documents are destroyed on board. When the prisoners finally reach land again, the Germans don't know what they're accused of, and they're let go.
So as you can see, there's roughly another minute left of this story, and it goes on to tell you a little bit about what happened to the rest of the ship during the rest of World War II. But what I wanted to focus on here is this museum consists literally of these model ships, and that placard you can see kind of center left of your screen is all the information that they've been able to put in their space because they're quite confined. And so by giving them this tool, they've not only been able to create animated rowboats, as you can see here, that kind of help show that the people coming off the ship, but also pull out archival photographs of that actual ship during the times that we were talking about in the story. And so it's really brought a lot of these exhibits to life for the museum. So this is kind of where I finish up, but I really wanted to say, we're interested in understanding what people think of the product and where, if there's any interest in it. So if you guys have an interest in talking to us a bit more about it, how you might use the program, we'd be happy to talk to you, and please contact us at the email on the screen there at contact@ephasar.com.